Afternoon from Hines, Jesse Carrillo. How are you?
Good
Great
to
to
see
see
you,
you.
man. Good to see you.
Excellent to see you as well. What's new? What's happening for you at the conference this year? What's got your interest?
Well, again, the cool thing is I'm more involved in this startup community, this VC community, and so seeing all these newer companies this year, even more than last year, it just gets us excited.
Yeah.
They're all looking at what gaps to address, what needs are out there, and you know, us old timers have been around for a while. We're like, well, we've had them for a long time.
Yeah.
So now it's exciting when you see them and they're coming in and they're actually being able to use today's technology to solve those problems where maybe we couldn't do it 10, 15 years ago, but now they're actually solving them and at the speed that they're solving them. It's pretty exciting to see, and again, I get excited every time I come out here and meet new friends and meet new companies.
Yeah. How does that affect you at Hines? How does that change what you do?
Well, for us, it allows us to really, you know, focus more on less of the back office stuff and more on the tenant-facing, the investor-facing side. You know, a lot of us have spent years implementing ERPs and hopefully honing in on our budgeting processes and our leasing processes, and we've gotten in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But now the focus is on the tenant side, the tenant engagement. How do we make you feel happy and more comfortable in that office space so that you're more apt to stay and renew a lease? Kind of a hospitality mindset around that.
I see. So the technology is allowing us to pay attention to people even more.
Yes, yes.
You gave a talk earlier called Hedging the Future. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so the idea there is you know, organizations are starting to either partner with companies like VC firms like Fifth Wall and other firms to try to figure out how to vet some of these startups and get a better insight into them so that when we make these decisions on which startups we want to look at or use, we have better information more broadly. So instead of us just having direct conversations with them, these VC firms can invest in them but also get us more inside information. And so the idea of this panel earlier was to say, okay, well, it's kind of the old buy versus build. Do you partner with an existing VC and have them kind of be your arm, your extension, the ones that are vetting the solutions, or do you build an internal fund yourself? You know, for Hines, we decided that the partnership was our better approach. I know companies like Brookfield and a few other companies have started building their own internal funds, and so they have the fund managers that are kind of doing what the VCs are doing. So the session was around that. It's like what the pros and cons, what have you learned, you know, what's worked for you, and so for us, we wanted to kind of educate the folks in that panel to say, here's what Hines is doing, here's what other organizations like CBRE and other companies are doing, and then if you're thinking about doing something, you know, here's maybe some of the lessons learned. So that was the goal of the panel.
That's great. And speaking of those lessons and learnings, what for you has been one of the most significant learning points in the last couple of years for you that you'd be willing to share with our audience?
I think on that side, just the speed of the startups, the amount of startups, I think we like to use the analogy of it takes a village.
Yeah.
And so for me, being a CIO at Hines, usually I'm the first entry point. You know, folks want to show me their wares and show me their technology.
Right.
But there's no way I can keep up with the flow and the amount of technology that's coming in. So for us to be able to create additional groups, an innovation office, to create a business technology group that can vet some of these solutions, to give multiple avenues for these startups to engage with Hines and communicate with Hines, and then us collaboratively working internally to make sure that we're keeping up with who's speaking to whom. It has allowed us to speak to a lot more, and then using Fifth Wall as well, but it has allowed us to really look at a lot more startups than maybe if I was the channel, if I was the gatekeeper only. So opening up the ability to these vendor partners to come into different angles and making it okay for them to come in through different angles, I think has been huge for us, and I think it's been great for them because they feel that they actually can get attention. And it's not just at my time, and you know, if I don't have time, I can't meet with them.
Right.
We like to use it takes a village approach because we want to learn about these partners. We want to learn what makes them different, because you know you might miss one if you don't give them a chance. It's kind of like going through an interview, and if you don't get the chance to interview, you can never impress anyone.
Right.
Same thing here. If they don't get a chance to speak to somebody at Hines, we may have missed an opportunity just because I didn't have the time. So we're trying to do it more collaboratively.
So have you sort of communicated culturally to people, hey, if you get this call, which maybe we would have said, don't bother me about before, we really want them to bother us?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And so again, what we try to do internally with the messaging with leadership or our regions or countries is to say, we've got 3 or 4 or 5 people within this company, innovation office, operations engineering groups, IT, business science group. We have 4 or 5 major groups that if you get approached, just let one of them know.
Yeah.
Right? Because you let one of them know, the rest of us will know.
Got it.
If you don't have a direct relationship with me personally, but you have a direct relationship with the innovation office or the operations engineering team, then keep those relationships, let them know, but then we'll know about it because we're all communicating as a group. So it's been a huge success. Like I said, we've been able to see a lot more product. And we're getting more excited when we do make a decision with either ourselves or with Fifth Wall that we've actually looked at the best of the best, because we don't believe that we've missed anyone.
You know, it's a funny theme that seems to be emerging from this year's conference, and I'll just share it with you off the top, which is that as the technology increases, the opportunity increases, the collaboration increases.
Absolutely.
And it feels like if you don't have a company that's got transparency and a non-competitive culture right now, you're stuck.
Yes.
Because you're going to miss all the fun. You know, Hines is obviously a terrific company. How do you maintain that? How do you stop, from as much as from your standpoint, how do you stop things from getting competitive? How do you engender that collaborative spirit?
Well, I think for me, well, me personally, is my personality has never been that I have to get all the credit.
Right.
So I think to me that's number one, is if we check our egos at the door. And it doesn't matter that you brought them in and you got the credit because you brought in company X, or I get the credit because I brought company Y.
Right.
That shouldn't matter. And if our personalities that we're working with are similar in that it's for the greater good of Hines. It's not that it was your idea or my idea.
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to do. And so it is tough, because you're talking about a bunch of type A personalities that are trying to move within the company. And we all gotten brought up that way internally as entrepreneurs. But I think once you realize that it is for the greater good, it's almost like the social feeling, right? We're trying to do something for the greater good of the earth, the greater good of the U.S., the greater good of people.
Yeah.
If you have that mindset that this is all about Hines and making sure that we stay competitive, because we could see other companies and what they're doing. I mean, we collaborate. The beauty of Realcomm and coming here is that I collaborate with all the other CIOs, right? And so I know what's going on with other companies to some degree, whatever they can share. And so if you can say it's for the greater good of Hines so that we stay competitive, then I think it has a better message, and we're able to work better together. And so again, you have to have the right people.
Yeah.
If you have someone that's uber competitive and they're not going to play nice in this circle of trust, then you will struggle. But fortunately, I've had some great folks that I'm working with, and it works for us. That's
terrific. Is there anything else that we want people to know about Hines or what you're doing at Hines this year?
I think for us, again, we've realized that, and I think you heard it here at the general session as well, is that flexible space, co-working, that is something that we all have to pay attention to. And so we have our innovation team is starting to pilot some flex space possibilities within our spaces. So you're going to hear a lot more on that. No secret there, we're all doing it.
Sure.
But then same thing with the tenant engagement apps. Looking at these companies that are able to give you that one app that you as a tenant can access your building controls, get to your office, change the air conditioning temperature if you don't like it, order a coffee, order an Uber. So again, making it feel more hospitality-like, that we're really caring about the employee at the tenant space. I think you're going to see that, not just from Hines, but I think you're going to see that as an industry.
Anything else you're excited about?
I'm still excited about RPA's, robotic process automation, from a back office standpoint.
Sure.
But of course, AI, machine learning. These companies are out here. There's several of them out here that are doing amazing things on the leasing side, on the data analytics, on the utility management side. And so when I see some of these dashboards and the amount of data that they're able to provide, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, the way we're going to be able to manage our buildings, in the old days, it was Excel spreadsheets all the time, and that's going to change. I mean, these companies are just doing amazing things.
Alex was just talking to us about how they're visualizing their data and making it even more navigable.
Absolutely. I mean, it's companies like that, they'll be able to give us models and data models that we can use that are more consistent, and then be able to visualize it, because we're all visual nowadays with the YouTube world. But no, I mean, again, I just get excited when I see what I can see with real-time data. The AI and the machine learning is telling me things I probably should have known, but I don't have the time.
Right.
But they're doing the smarts.
Yep.
And then so now I can make better decisions. And so I think we're all headed there, but I get excited when I see these vendors out here that are really making us leapfrog to the next evolution.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Jesse Carrillo from Hines. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with more Conference Live.